presenter, and it talks about passion, and there's 4 different sections that it talks about, and that first one is show your passion. So most people today think that passion is usually something that's tied to strong feelings, especially with the desires associated with love, and that love is either tied to a person or something that we have interest in. So that could be a hobby or like a calling that evokes strong personal commitment. And in the book it said, passion is by definition a strong emotion with many associated feelings, such as enthusiasm and vivacity. And then it continues to talk about how having emotions is good. And because we have emotions, we learn to control them to become successful. So if we think about like situations in which we become angry or like upset, that doesn't necessarily drive us to become successful in our lives, because we're going to be, thinking about the wrong things or like having that negativity in our mindset that doesn't lead us to having those great outlooks. And so the problem with presentations is sometimes there's a lack of emotion, and there's a lack of passion and enthusiasm. But why is that? In the book it also says the passion is lacking because the presenter is hesitant to project his or her emotion, true feelings, or true level of deep interest. And then the next section of that talks about why we're afraid to show our passion. So some people say that hope, enthusiasm, and positivity are empty, and others say that delivery and personal qualities, simplicity, and clarity in the design of the visuals of the presentation isn't necessary. But either or doesn't necessarily matter, because it all plays a part into giving a presentation. And it says, nobody ever said that delivery, emotion, and passionate engagement are the only things that matter or that they are sufficient. You do have to be engaged, inspire, and motivate, because that's what leaders do. And then it also talks about being inspired by performers. And the author talked about one of the leaders of the band. I can't remember, the Wind, Fire, something. And it said that like our presentations must have passion, energy, sincerity, a smile, and total engagement. So when we give our presentations, we need to have all those things and to be interested in what we're actually doing and not interesting to our audience. People generally are interested in what they are doing and what draws others in, even if their opinion is different. And people tend to worry about if they're interesting to their audience. So the question is not how can I be more interesting to this audience, but how can I demonstrate why this topic or information is important, and how can I show why it has a matter to them. So that is kind of what I just took from studying passion in the Naked Presenter book.
All right, awesome.
Thanks, Kayla.
Good job.
Right. So the quote by John Wesley, who was a leader that started the Methodist movement, he said, "Light yourself on fire with passion, and people will come from miles to watch you burn." So as I was thinking about passion, I started thinking about homeschooling. I've been homeschooling my kids for about 15 years now, and I'm always looking for a way to make learning interesting and fun. And so some of the things that we have done include co-ops. And so we would meet at locations or people's homes for the kids to have classes together. And some of the things that I've noticed when we've met for these co-ops is that often the kids are not as interested in the classes. They want to just socialize, and sometimes they are really acting bored and like they don't want to be there. So in thinking about what the problem is with that, I realized that the co-ops are often parent-driven. The parents are deciding what they want the kids to be learning, And so when you think about it for just a minute, what classes, well, think of one class that you really liked when you were going to school, one class. And when you think about it, I bet you a lot of it has to do with the teacher having a passion for the subject. And that passion carries over to the students. So when I had the opportunity to have a co-op at my home several years ago, what I started thinking about was that instead of the parents choosing what the kids should be learning, I asked the parents to choose what they were passionate about, what they wanted to teach. And so we ended up having a sewing class, and we had a class of art. We had a class on strange animals, and then we even had one dad that came and taught about law. And it was great. It was magic. The kids learned. They were excited because the teachers were excited. They had passion. Life is all about learning, and we can use this knowledge that we are gaining right now about passion to teach others through our presentations. And so how can we do that? One idea that was in the Naked Presenter by Gar Reynolds, he says, for most presentation topics, a sincere smile can go a long way in helping to engage an audience. And I thought that Kayla also covered lots of other great ideas for how to be passionate in your presentation. And then we can teach others through our presentation, but I also think that we can create a learning environment for ourselves when we recognize that passion is important in that. We can choose to surround ourselves with people that are passionate about the things that we want to be learning. And Gar Reynolds also said, our brains are good at imitating actions, but just as importantly, they're really good at feeling what others are feeling. So when we share our excitement and passion, it will naturally spread to others. And that is a great thing to remember in our presentation. When we act like we are passionate, and when we are, it will naturally spread. So right now we are again involved in a co-op, and when the parents were getting together and talking about what they wanted the kids to learn, one mom suggested that her child did not like to read, and so she suggested a book club. Well, I immediately hopped on that because I am very passionate about reading and books. I just love that. So I have been teaching that in our co-op, and I was very excited last week when her daughter, the one who didn't like reading, announced, well, we always tell how much reading we have done that week, and she said she had read 45 chapters that week. She was very inspired by the things that we've been talking and doing in class, and that just made me so happy. It was an awesome win, and I totally attribute it to the passion and the excitement that we have in our book club. Oprah Winfrey said, passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you. And I think it's awesome that we are having the opportunity to create TED Talks. We are getting to pick topics that we are naturally passionate about. And so I think that through being passionate, and that will naturally spread to the audience, and we will be successful. So thank you.
All right. Good job.
Okay, so proximity is effectively engaging our audience through removing obstacles, using distance, and using movement to really engage and connect with the people that we're talking to. So removing obstacles, it talks about a few different things in the chapter. It talks about physical obstacles, visual obstacles, language, and then notes are just a few of them. So physical obstacles are like your laptop or a table or a podium or a lectern. And Gar Reynolds talks about you need to move out from behind them as much as possible. You need to remove that like security blanket in front of you. A lot of presenters like to keep that there to separate them from the audience, to make them feel secure. But what we want is to connect with the audience. And so we have to get rid of that. We have to be raw. We have to be real. Visuals can be an obstacle sometimes. We talked about it in the last couple of weeks with our slide designs. They need to be effective. They need to not be distracting, and they need to be digested really quickly. Language is when, like, you're talking to a group of high schoolers, you wouldn't talk to them as you would higher up executives in a business or CEOs. So you need to keep your audience in mind and use appropriate language so that that doesn't become like an obstacle in of itself. Another obstacle is notes. So he talks about these detailed notes that people have, and sometimes because they're nervous, which can create nervousness in the audience. But what he says is, if you do have notes, if you really need it, you can use bulleted notes. Very simple, just a simple idea or a keyword to remind you of where you are and to keep you on track. But otherwise, you want it to be, and he uses the example of jazz. He wants you should be able to improvise and to be able to move how you can or how you want throughout the presentation to make it really organic and really natural feeling to the audience. He talks about distance. So you want to bring your audience together and you want to move closer to your audience. If you're in a large room, you don't want your audience to be spread out. You don't want them to be all across the room. You want them to feel a little more intimate so that they can trust you and you can feel together. It also makes it more effective to engage your audience in that kind of setting. You don't want to feel like a lecturer. You want to feel like a person talking with them. And then the last thing is movement. So when you can move from behind your obstacles, when you can get rid of those, you're free to move around the stage, the room, even within the audience. And this helps them to connect with you as well because you're less robotic. Again, it's more organic, more natural, and you're able to really use that time that you have to make them feel like you're a person and to connect with you on a different level, not just like they're watching someone on a screen, like we are. So as we understand how proximity affects our presentations, we can reduce confusion and those obstacles that I talked about, and it will enhance your relationship with the audience.
All right, thank you, Valerie. That leads perfectly into what I have, and I'm actually going to share my screen with you guys. Let's see. Can you guys see that?
I was there for a second. Now it's black.
Can you see my screen?
No, I only see black.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just flat.
Let's do that.
Maybe just try it again.
Join the screen here. There's a lot of options here. Okay, let's try that. Can you guys see that?
There we go. Yep.
All
Yes,
right.
looks good.
So as Valerie said, proximity is like the state of being near or close to something, and it plays a really important role in presentations. So the distance between a speaker and an audience, and even between the individual audience members, has a great impact on the ability a presenter has to connect and communicate with their audience. Gar Reynolds, he talked about creating proximity with our audience, and he's shared 3 ways we can do that. The first is shortening the distance between yourself and the audience, creating audience closeness by bringing individual audience members closer, and removing any barriers, and Valerie covered a lot of that. So when I was reading about the power of proximity, I initially thought of Alex BYUi. So Alex BYUi, he came to speak and perform at Guam a couple of months ago, and so I'm going to share with you what I learned about proximity from Alex BYUi. The first was the importance of shortening the distance. So what Alex BYUi did when he first came to speak and perform is he entered the audience from the back of the auditorium. And he came in and he shook hands with the audience and talked to them personally. And this is a picture of a young man in my ward. And Alex BYUi, as he talked to him, heard that he was a performer. And so he invited him onto stage to perform with him. And because he made these actions as an audience, we really felt connected to him. Like we knew him personally. The next thing was he created audience closeness. So not only did he connect with his audience, he helped the audience connect with each other. So I love this picture because it shows that the audience was not only enjoying Alex's performance, but they're laughing and connecting with each other. And these two girls right here that are laughing together are my daughter and her best friend. And even though this performance was months ago, they still remember it because they feel that connection they had together there. The next was removing any barriers. And Alex Boye, he was really great at removing barriers. You can see in this picture that he has gotten off the stage and is now level with the audience. And the day before, he had actually spoken in a church, and instead of standing behind the podium, he stood to the side of it with a microphone. And at one point, he even came down the stairs and stood with the audience. And so all these things that Alex did really helped the audience feel connected with each other and to him. And these lessons that I learned from Alex Boye, they can be applied to any presentation or performance. Gar Reynolds said there are physical limitations, and each case is different. But as a general principle, you should shorten the distance, bring individual audience members closer, and remove any barriers. And I hope this helps you guys with your performance.
Thanks, Tony. I love the personal story. That's
Right.
awesome.
Yeah, that was really good. That performer seemed like when he had all the people up on stage, like that's part of play too. It seems like when you get them all involved and smiling and happy and doing stuff and making memories that way. Hang on one second. So playing is how mammals in general learn the best that they can. Like it's throughout all animals and mammals is they grow and learn the best and develop by playing. Like cats and bears and little dogs, puppies, they just play all the time, and that's like the most efficient way of development. And so and no matter what your age, play is vital to remembering things. The most important memories in our lives are when we're having the most fun, you know, and it makes us smarter and brighter, and there's nothing that activates the neurons in our brain like playing. And Brian Smith said the opposite of play is not work, it's depression. So, you know, playing makes us happy, really. And play is basically how you make the audience not bored as far as incorporating into a presentation. It's how you engage their attention and make the presentation exciting and something to remember. It's done through both visuals and sound. And it's also done through stories, too. I watched a TED Talk where he was talking about creativity in schools, and he told a story about a little girl in class, and it was art time, and she was drawing a picture of God, and the teacher came over and said, "What's that you're drawing?" She said, "It's God." And she's like, "But nobody knows what God looks like." And she said, "They will in a minute." And it's like getting the audience to laugh and think about the point you're making in a fun, story-driven way is playful. And one of the let's see, you know, this can be done through smiling, how you walk and move about the stage, and how you move your hands around and exaggerate like this, and get the audience to look at you visually and see how you're being playful and enjoying yourself. And it's making expressions, and you know, all the different stuff on your face can be playful or whatnot. And all this sends signals to the audience, and it tells them that you care about what you're saying, and helps the message be remembered in the audience. And that's about it.